Welcome back to the DFS Pet Shop. I am your host, the DFS Jerusalem, and you can follow me, of course, on Twitter at DFS Jerusalem. Today, I am joined by none other than the homie K Sizzle7. This is Casey Matthews, man, known on Twitter at K Sizzle7. What is going on, homie? What's happening with you, man?
Hey man, I'm ready. I'm ready, bro. I'm rocking my Jerry Rice jersey. I'm already in mid-season form, so come in NFL season, I'm guaranteeing to win week 1.
I see it. So I gotta ask you, are you a 49ers fan or just a big Jerry Rice fan or what?
I'm a Jerry Rice fan more than I am a 49ers fan. I've been a Jerry Rice fan since I was a little kid. I wore 80 in high school. I had to switch to 81, but Jerry Rice is my dude. Jerry Rice is the greatest receiver of all time.
Now, I'm old, but I'm more of a new school cat, so I lean toward the homie Randy Moss in terms of greatest wide receiver ever. But I get it, though. I get it.
I got a Randy Moss jersey too. I got a Randy Moss Vikings jersey too. So yeah, so we on the same page on that as well.
Now, folks, what you see in front of you, this is the homie K Sizzle's Twitter page, man. And, a guy that follows DFS, plays a lot of DFS, had not been in tune with CFL over the last couple of seasons. So he goes out, listens to our show, and he says, whoever did the CFL vid, I love him. $150 on a $4 buy-in. Is he going to be a regular? I made my lineup listening to you. This is from the homie Lee the Nappy. And, kind of what I want to do, I want K Sizzle to kind of break down this lineup and tell us a little bit of why this was such a good lineup. I know hindsight is 2020, of course, 137 points. Yeah, it's a great lineup, but the lineup was made. So based off what we talked about during the show, what made this lineup in particular a good lineup?
When he posted that, I had to go back and watch our video to see if I said this exact same lineup. The difference between what I said and what he posted is the defense.
Right.
That's the only difference. The defense I was on was Hamilton. He chose Toronto. That's the only difference between what I actually said and what he actually posted. And when I talked to him about it, he was like, yo, I just chose that because the money fit. That's the only reason why he chose it.
Right.
So I'm like, well, you just lucked out on the defense. But the rest of the plays, I was definitely without a doubt on. Rainey would have had more points if it weren't for some penalties. I want to put that out there. The rest of it was a team stack with Mitchum, Neeson, Daniels, and McDaniel. He said that on the show that good game stacks or good team stacks is the way to go. And game theory-wise, I still believe that. So he did excellent by listening to it, by stacking Calgary, and then throw in the chalk wide receiver who I thought was going to be Zylstra. And he did turn out to be chalk. As you can see, he was 29% owned. So he definitely followed our lead there. What actually kind of shocked me, though, was how low Rainey and McDaniel was, their ownership level. That actually kind of shocked me a little bit. But after I thought about it, Rainey is a triple threat. And the way they have him priced is that triple threat status is included. So you don't get a discount for the triple threat.
And by that, you mean this is a guy that returns kicks, can be deadly in the passing game as well as the running game, right?
Exactly. So DraftKings knows that as well and took that in consideration when pricing him. So when he threw Rainey in there, when he threw Zylstra in there, that made sense. And then he stacked Calgary. All of that, the whole lineup made sense. The only thing that was the quote-unquote wild card was that Toronto defense.
Now Zylstra, that's a guy who I ran 3 lines, and he was in all 3 of them because I love, where I could get 4.4, I could pay for a guy in the flex spot. I had him in the same spot in the flex where I could, stay with the field. If he went off and if he didn't go off, it wasn't going to kill me because it was only 4.4. That was an excellent call.
Yeah, and a lot of the other, CFL scouts were talking him up, so I felt like he was going to be chalky. There's some other plays that was on the slate last week as well. And, let me just also say this. I got some sleepers for you this week, who I think will be this week's Zylstra. The difference is they should be lower owned. And we'll get to that when we go game by game.
Well, we're trying to go to the Sizzler, baby. So
exactly. I want everybody to eat. That's the main reason why I want this lineup posted, is that I didn't win, but the information I gave allowed somebody else to win, and now he's eating at the sizzler.
Right. Now we do have another lineup. One of your personal lineups, I believe, that we can take a look at here, where we see we got Mike Riley, you got John White, Darius Bowman. Take us through this lineup and the construction here. Kind of give us a read on this one.
It's the same thought process that he had. The difference is I was on the Tiger Cats. I was on that defense all week because they was playing against Toronto. Toronto was sorry last year, so as you can tell, they were very chalky as well. They were 53% on in the 2-day slate. But my thought process was the same. I'll stack Edmonton with Bowman, White, and Zylstra. The wild card was Duke Williams.
Right.
Duke Williams showed up and showed out, and I'm on Duke Williams again this week.
Now this looks to be one of the lower owned guys on the slate, and he goes out and scores 20 plus DraftKings points. That was a really nice call on that.
Yeah, and he's a rookie. He didn't get drafted by the league because of some personal off the field stuff. And so it goes back to what we talked about last week about the type of players that's in this league. You got players like a Duke Williams who didn't get drafted, go up to the CFL, he shows out his first week. He's trying to get called back to the NFL so he can be in camp this fall. Right. So he's trying to show out right now.
Right. And that's always good to know, man, because a lot of people, these guys are athletes, but they're people too, man. And just like you may have had a challenge or two or whoever, you can definitely look to see some of these guys want to make it to that next level. And that's a lot of what we talked about last week, talking about specifically the young players.
Mm-hmm. And with this particular lineup, my thought process was I'm going to stack that game because it was the highest over-under, if my memory serves me correctly. It was the highest over-under on the slate. So I felt like I was with Vegas in the sense that it was going to be a high-scoring game. So I was like, you know what? I'm stacking that game, and I'm throwing in my favorite defense. That was my whole thought process. And I didn't – sometimes with CFL, keep it simple. Keep it simple. You don't have to make it so complex with your thought process and with your game theory and with your lineup construction. Keep it simple. If you like plays, play them. If you got the biggest thing I want to talk about in reference to game theory, if you leave money on the table and you like the lineup, leave the money on the table.
Go with it.
Leave the money on the table. Reason why I bring that up is because the perfect lineup from last week had over $8,000 left on the table.
Wow.
For the perfect lineup, it left $82,000 left on the table.
Wow. So that means they spent they spent 40 over 40K, left 8.2 and had the perfect line.
Yeah, pull it up real quick. The total amount was 42400.
Wow, that's tough.
And it scored 176 points. So that was the perfect lineup from last week on the whole 4-game slate. So I'm saying that to say is that don't be afraid to leave money on the table. Don't be afraid of that. You don't have to spend up at every position. You don't have to spend all your dollars. If your plays are solid and you're confident in them, play them.
Word. Now, that being said, man, let's go ahead and take a look at last week's action, kind of recap, get an idea of who we can look to going forward, who we think are going to establish themselves as really good fantasy options going forward. Did you want to take it game by game, maybe look at the first game, the Saskatchewan and the Montreal game?
Yeah. Now with that game, I called it. The reason why I say that, Glenn sucks. I sat there and watched that game, and I'm thinking to myself, why isn't he throwing the ball deep? Like most of his passes was like short passes or crossing routes and stuff like that. I'm like, throw the ball deep, dude. You got Carter out there. You got Roosevelt out there. They're going deep. Carter could not get free for whatever reason, and Glenn, in my opinion, couldn't even throw the ball to him.
Right.
So moving forward, until Glenn shows me any different, I'm attacking him anytime he is on the slate. I'm gonna attack Glenn with the opposing defense. In reference to Marshall, Marshall was the X factor. I didn't know anything about him, and he started. He was at he was 3K and put up hold on. He was 3K and put up stupid value for his price. Real stupid value.
Oh yeah, he had 84 yards on 11 carries. The longest was 26. Is Cameron Marshall, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming. I ain't gonna sit here and lie to you. I didn't see that coming, and mainly because I didn't know anything about Marshall. And technically, Marshall is the backup. So this week, Marshall might not start. I have to stress that out there. Look for the lineups the day before the game. Marshall might not start. All right. In reference to the rest of the team, Dembski and Grant went off because it looked like Glenn couldn't throw the ball deep. If you notice, all the averages are short averages. And you also notice that they didn't really have a lot of yards after catch because Glenn was throwing short balls, stuff to the flat, crossing patterns, 5 yards and 6 yards. He barely threw over 10 yards. Barely. Threw over, 10-yard pass. So moving forward for this week, I think it's going to be the same.
And something that I'm noticing, I think you're going to need multiple touchdowns. You're going to need the guy that's going to air it out, man. 400 yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns, really letting the ball go in order to do well week to week.
Now, I'm glad you brought that up. When selecting your quarterback, on average, this is on average, your quarterback will get you over 300 yards, a little bit over 300 yards or close to it, and 2 touchdowns. If you get that out of your quarterback, you're solid. You're solid. If you get about 300 yards with 2 touchdowns, you're solid. You're set at quarterback. In reference to the other side with Durant, I tried to warn you, bro. I know that's your homie. I know that's your homie. But the dude sucks, man. The dude sucks. Like, you playing against the worst defense last year, and you barely threw. First off, on average, it's about 60 plays per team. Right. Most teams runs about 40 pass plays and about 20 run plays. That's about averages. As you notice, they only threw the ball 31 times. They didn't throw the ball a lot. And same thing with Durant. It was like he was targeting B.J. Cunningham on the short passes. He was targeting Nick Lewis on the short passes. One of the reasons why Ernest Jackson didn't really go off last week is because he's the deep threat. And once again, Durant barely threw the ball deep.
Now, Jackson had a touchdown, and we saw B.J. Cunningham. I think he got hit for a long one, but it was more of a yards after the catch. He caught the ball, made a move, and took it the distance. I believe in one spot. But like you said, man, in a game where you're gonna get 60 rushing plays, and half of the plays go to Darian Durant as a quarterback. That's got to speak to the team's confidence in his ability to really throw the ball, or not to have confidence in him to throw the ball like that. So that was a very good lesson learned for me this week.
Right. And not only that defense, the Montreal defense, I'm concerned. They should have shut Saskatchewan down. They should have shut them down. They should have shut them down. The fact that they didn't, I'm a little concerned about that defense. But moving forward, I don't like Saskatchewan. And we'll talk about them on this slate. A couple of plays that I do like as one-offs, but I wouldn't stack Saskatchewan. Same thing this week with Montreal. I would like a few one-offs, but I wouldn't stack Montreal either. As you could tell, Vegas was right. That over-under was the lowest over-under of the slate for last week, and they were also the lowest scoring 2 teams of last week. So moving forward, keep that in mind. There may be 2 teams that you want to attack using the opposing defense, which we will talk about as we get to the slate.
Right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next game that we do have. This is going to be the the Calgary, Calgary and Ottawa. Now this was ended up in a 31 point on both sides. Ended up in a tie. How does that work? Because we really wanted to see a winner to this game. It was a very exciting game down to the last play. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about what happened here. You got Bo Levi Mitchell and Trevor Harris.
First off, if you're looking at the two quarterbacks, that goes back to what I was just saying previously. You want those numbers that both of them put up. That's what you want out of your quarterback. You want 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's what you want out of your quarterback. And we'll talk about Ricky Ray in a little bit, why I think his performance is fool's gold. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But in reference to in reference to this matchup, this was the second time they're playing again, same matchup this week on a back-to-back home and home. So they played each other 3 times in a row. They played each other last year in the Grey Cup, first game of the season this year, second game of the season this week. So it's like they know each other very well. In my opinion, this started to become a nice little rivalry. In reference to the Calgary side, this is the side that Lee stacked to win his money. The Calgary side with Bo Levi Mitchell. I think I'm right about that. Yeah. With Bo Levi, Meeson, Daniels, and McDaniel, they went off. They went ham. The only thing that was missing was the touchdowns. The touchdowns went to the secondary receivers. And that's another thing I want to bring up while we're on it. The most common formation in CFL is 1 running back, 4 receivers. That's the most common formation. So don't be afraid to pick those secondary receivers on the team. And like in this case, Durant and Jordan, they did very, very, very well.
Yeah. Both of those guys catching touchdowns. Kamar Jordan with 5 receptions and 72 yards. That was very good, especially for the price point that he was at.
Right. On the Ottawa side, in my opinion, Stagby had the most value from the game. He had 24.2 DraftKings points, and he was only 3K last week. Not only that, but it seems like, Harris likes to throw the ball deep to him. He was targeting Stagby on those deep throws. So I think that's something to look out for moving forward. But Ottawa's a little different because they are deep at wide receiver. Ottawa's deep at wide receiver. So while he was targeting him in the first game, I think he's going to continue to target him as long as Stagby gets open. Plus, Stagby is one of those dual threats. In his case, he's a dual threat where he returns kicks as well as involved in the offensive game as well. So that's the player who I like this week as well. The stupid value to me was Gil Anders, the running back. Actually, he plays fullback for Ottawa. Dude had 12 carries for 80 yards, and if you didn't have that fumble, you would have more DK points. He out carried Powell. He's more involved in the offense than Powell, but Powell tweaked his ankle, so that kind of made sense why that ratio was like that. The biggest thing for me is this. What would you rather have? Would you rather have a quarterback that's higher owned, lower price, and puts up more points versus a quarterback that's lower owned, higher price, and puts up 1 less point?
I'd rather have the first. Give me 8.
Okay. That would be Bo Levi Mitchell. He was 10K last week. He put up 28.04 DK points. He was 22% owned. Harris, on the opposite side, he was 10.6K. He cost more. He put up 27.6 DK points. So less than a point. And he was 4% owned.
Wow.
So I would rather have Harris.
Yeah.
I would rather have Harris. And so that's what I mean by with the quarter. If you get your quarterback selection tight, you're set. You're set. If you get to pick the right quarterback that goes off, you're good to go. Those are the notes I have for that Calgary Ottawa game. And we'll talk about them too when we get on this slate.
Now, as we're changing gears, getting into the next game from last week. The question I do want to ask you is, in terms of kick returning, is it the same as like a rushing yard? Do you get points per 10 yards, or how does that work?
Just a second, and I'll tell you exactly the way DraftKings has it set up. Is that the scoring is a little bit different than it was last year.
Because I know on NFL, you only get special teams points on touchdowns. You don't get, the actual yardage. You just get the points if they score a touchdown.
Yeah, in CFL, you get points for the yardage. Oh, that brings me up another game theory. If you are using a kick returner from a team, so we use Rainey as an example. If you are using Rainey in your lineup, use the defense to go with him. Because if Rainey returns the kick, not only does Rainey get the points, the defense also gets the points.
Right. Now, next game we have
reference scoring. You asked about the return yardage.
Yeah.
It says here you get 0.05 points per yard.
Oh, okay. They don't do that in DraftKings for NFL, bro. You only get points for a touchdown. You only get points for a touchdown. That's dope. They should do that in DraftKings.
And I think they will. And the reason why I say I think they will is because, the kickoffs are different because the rules in CFL is you have to return the kick. Ain't no fair catch.
Right.
So I think that's why the scoring is a little different because there is no fair catch in the CFL where in the NFL there is.
Okay. Now there was another game that you were pretty high on last week. The Edmonton Eskimos and the BC Lions, man. You talked a lot about BC being one of those teams that people really weren't going to want to play a lot. But they could actually put up some points. So they lost by 3 to the Edmonton Eskimos. Tell us a little bit about what you saw from that game.
BC should have won that game. Points was taken off the board because of some bad penalties at the wrong time. Rainey had returned a kick for a touchdown. That was points taken off the board. They had a deep pass to Nick Moore. Was called back. Points was taken off the board. BC, in my opinion, should have won the game. Now, the biggest thing from the Edmonton BC game was the duds that the top receivers put up. Bowman and Arsenault put up huge duds. Like, imagine if you had Odell Beckham and Julio Jones in the same lineup and both of them scored 5 points. That's what happened. That's what happened. So that's how rare that is, except for Bowman. The reason why I say with Bowman, EDM Edmonton got more weapons, as we saw with Zilch. Dookie Love, I had to give me some Dookie Love, bro, because he put me in the money. So Zylstra and the Duke put up great numbers. I bring them two up because even if the number one receiver puts up a dud, if you stack a team with the right secondary receivers, you should still be okay.
Right.
Another thing I want to bring up, Edmonton, White, the running back for Edmonton, is our first 100-yard rusher of the season. He was the only running back to run over 100 yards last week, and I see him doing that again this week. With the possibility, he also caught passes. He put up a nice little number of, what did you see?
Yeah, he was super involved in the offense, man. Had 104 yards, a touchdown. Caught 2 balls, only for 4 yards, but still those receptions stack up, though. He had a nice game. Yeah.
The biggest thing to keep out for is Edmonton had an injury to their middle linebacker. It was a major injury. He's out for the season. That's moving forward. That's something to keep in mind is that they lost their defensive stalwart. However, even without him, they still was putting pressure on BC. And I forgot to say this, but BC offensive line changed from last year. They lost one of their top offensive linemen, so that kind of explains why they was kind of out of sync and having penalties because they got a rookie at tackle. He was the one that caused both of the penalties. So As long as they can clean that up, I still like BC moving forward.
All right. So the last game, because we did have 4 games on that first week of CFL action. The last game was the Toronto Argonauts and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. This one was sort of a lopsided win for the Argonauts, man, 32-15. What do you think about this game and what you saw from the players here?
First off, I had to take a wait-to-see approach with that Toronto offense. I had to see what it looked like. I had no clue how that was going to look. I didn't see them in preseason, so I had to take a wait-to-see approach. So with the Toronto offense, but I still looked at what they did last year, and I felt like Hamilton should have won that game. The biggest factor why Hamilton didn't win that game was Tolliver got injured on the second play of the game, the wide receiver from Tolliver. And once he got injured on the second play of the game, it was like Hamilton was completely out of sync. They didn't look the same. I got to give props to Ricky Ray. When you put up 506 yards, you know what I mean? Let me just put it like this. When you put up 506 yards, you would think you would be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't. He wasn't. So I'm still not impressed with that Toronto offense because now that I've seen it, they look one-dimensional. Very one-dimensional. Meaning that they barely gave Whitaker the ball, whether it be in the passing game or in the running game. They barely gave it to him. I think they gave it to him maybe a total of like 4 times. I mean, no, he had 9 carries.
9 carries. Yeah.
He had 9 carries and 2 catches on 6 targets. So we're talking about a total of 11 touches. He only touched the ball 11 times, which equaled like 5.6 DraftKings points. Even when I saw him, it didn't look like he was involved in the offense. It looked like because he wasn't involved in the offense, his head wasn't in the game. Like he felt like he was an afterthought. He played like he was an afterthought. So I'm still not impressed with that Toronto offense because they look so one-dimensional. Once you shut down their passing, then what?
Even with Devier Posey, man, having that 147 yards receiving, well, 79 of that, 80 yards of that, more than half of it came on one play, a long touchdown catch, and that was the only touchdown he had on that day.
I'm glad you brought that up because sometimes big plays can skew the numbers. It looked like he had a great game, but if you watch the game, you know that he got most of that off of one play. Same thing with Zylstra. Zylstra had a decent game, but Zylstra with Edmonton, he had a decent game, but he had that one big play. It was like an 80-yard pass or something like that. So sometimes if you don't watch the games and only look at the numbers, it can be a little skewed. But I'm glad you brought that up about he cut all those yards off of one pass. Like, dude, come on, get it together. I'm still not impressed with Toronto. Posey was the best value in that game. He was 4.4K, and he put up the highest score of the whole slate of 30.7 DK points. Those are the type of plays that you want to find. You got to dig for them, but they're there. They're there.
Yes.
And that goes back to what I said. If you had Zylstra, who was also at 4.4, you had Posey, who was also at 4.4. You know what I'm saying? So you got 2 value plays that showed up and showed out. Now you see why leaving money on the table is not a bad thing.
Right.
Before we let that game go, I got to give shout-outs to S.J. Green. He had some amazing one-handed catches. Like, I'm sitting there watching him. He's looking like Odell Beckham out there, bro.
Shout out to S.J. Green. You know what I'm saying? Looking like Odell Beckham. 7 for 124 yards, man. Yeah. That's pretty solid.
Right. He would have been like if you would have had Ricky Ray, S.J. Green, and Posey. Just those 3 players alone, that leaves so much cash for you to pay up at other positions, take risk on other players and stuff like that. And we see that we're going to see that type of value, in my opinion, to all the way up to maybe week 5 because of the pricing and stuff like that. Pricing will get tighter as the season progresses, but right now the pricing is so loose. I can advise, don't be mad at leaving money on the table.
Right, word. Well, let's go ahead, man, and open up the slate, man. Kind of chop it up because we do have, before the show you were telling me that there's a chance that some more options could open up at different points during the week. But we do know that we do have 4 games on the slate. We've got Ottawa, Calgary, BC, Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton, and Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. So the first game we do have on the slate is going to be available for us to jump into tomorrow. That is the Ottawa Redblacks and the Calgary Stampeders. Let's talk a little bit about this and see exactly how you feel about this one.
Right now, the over-under for this game, from what I'm looking at, is 55.5, and it has Calgary as 8-point favorites. There's 2 things I agree with Vegas that it's going to be over the 55.5. I disagree with Vegas on Calgary being 8-point favorites. I think it's going to be a closer game, as indicated last week with a 31-31 tie, and even as indicated in the Grey Cup from last year when that game went into overtime. So I think these 2 teams are a lot closer. They know each other very well. So I agree with Vegas with the over-under. I disagree with the 8-point spread. On the Ottawa side, there's value here. There's tons of value here. The biggest value is at running back. I looked at research trying to find out who's going to start, who's not going to start, because as I mentioned, Powell hurt his ankle last week. When I looked at who was practicing, Madu earlier this week was practicing with the first team, but then as the week progressed, Powell started practicing. So both of them has been practicing with the first team. And as we know, they've already released their lineups, and they got both Powell and Madu listed as active. And I'm like, wait a minute. Something about this don't feel right. It don't feel right, meaning that I don't think both of those running backs will be active. I think they listed them as that because I think, in my opinion, Powell is more of a game-time decision. That's why they went ahead and listed them like that. That way, if he don't respond to treatment or whatever the case may be, cool, they still got Madu. But in my opinion, at first I was on Gillanders earlier this week before I saw how things were practicing. But after that, I'm not on any of the running backs because it feels like it's going to be a running back by committee type situation. And we already know in the NFL, you don't want to touch running back by committee. Same thing applies in the CFL. Matter of fact, in my opinion, it's
even
worse.
More. Yeah,
it's worse because, like I said, they only run 20 running plays. If you cut that in half, you got 10 on one side, 10 on the other. Yeah, me personally, I'm not going to touch any of those running backs because it just feels like a running back by committee situation. However, if you want to, I still like Gillanders as a sleeper. He had 12 carries for 80 yards. He had a fumble, so that means he could have more points, more fantasy points. And the fact that both Powell and Madu is together, he's the starting fullback. So I think, he was last week. This week they got him listed as running back. So it's weird. I'm not touching them. I'm not touching any of them. If I do, it would be Gillanders, but now I'm kind of off of them. The other value play is Stigby. I really like Stigby. He's going to be a dual threat this week. He's starting at wide receiver. He's also starting at kick returner. Matter of fact, both of their starting wide receivers is also their starting kick returners. So Stigby and Spencer are starting at wide receiver and starting at kick returner.
Right.
However, when I watched the game, Harris was targeting Sinopoli and Ellingson a lot. And so if I was to stack this game, if I was to stack Ottawa, I should say, I like Harris, I like Stigby, I like Spencer, I like Sinopoli, and I like Ellingson. I don't like the Ottawa defense. Like I said, this is the highest over-under of the game, so I don't anticipate interceptions or a lot of sacks from Ottawa. And then I already talked about the running back situation. Look, it feels like a running back by committee, so I don't want to touch that.
Now,
on the other, go ahead.
I want to ask who you looking at the quarterback in this game, because Bo Levi is sitting right there at 10.4, baby.
I really like me some Bo Levi. I really do. That goes back to the question I just asked you, because we got the same matchup, but the difference is now the pricing is different. Bo Levi is priced up higher than Harris now. Harris' price went down to 10.1. Bo Levi is went up to 10.4. So if we take last week in consideration, Bo Levi scored 1 point more than Harris, only 1 point more, and was higher owned. I still like Bo Levi, but I got to temper my expectations. The reason why is because Daniel got hurt last week. And so because that's one of his big targets, Daniel got hurt. So I want to temper my expectations a little bit, but this is Bo Levi, baby. I'm riding with him. Somebody asked me on Twitter, if I had to lock a player in, what player would that be? Bo Levi.
Okay.
Bo Levi.
Okay.
And I can say that with confidence because I feel like he's going to get you that 300 yards, 2 touchdown game that you need from your quarterback. I can say that without hesitation, no doubt, because that's what he's going to put up every game against Ottawa. Another thing I want you to consider on the Calgary side is that Calgary ran a lot of play action. So this week, they may do the opposite. Instead of doing the play action, go ahead and get a ball to Meeson. So I like Bo Levi, I like Meeson, and I definitely like McDaniel from Calgary side. With Daniel being hurt, somebody got to step up. Actually, there's 2 big news coming out of Calgary. Daniel being hurt, and then their kick returner, Finch, got suspended for 2 games for dope charges.
Oh, wow.
Well, league substance abuse, however you want to spend, I call it dope charges. You got some dope charges, so you out for 2 games. So at the time when I wrote up my article, I didn't know who was going to be the kick returner at that time, and I speculated it was going to be either Durant or Jordan. Well, the lineups came out, and it's neither one of them. Matter of fact, the guy that they got returning kick returners is not even in the player pool.
Wow.
I was pissed about that. And the guy that's replacing Daniels in the starting lineup is also not in the player pool. So I'm like, well, there's 2 guys I don't have to worry about, but I do because they may take points from the guys that's in the player pool.
Right.
So I'm like, man, I like Calgary to win the game. I want to put that out there. I think Calgary will win the game, so I do agree with Vegas on that aspect. But I'm just not exactly sure who's going to get the touchdowns. I'm not touchdown hunting. I'm just letting you know who I'm kind of a little shaky about that because of the 2 players that's not in the player pool. However, if I was to stack Calgary, it would be the exact same stack from last week, except take Daniels out and put in Durant. So I like Bo Levi Mitchell. I like McDaniel. I like Durant. I like Jordan, and I like Meeson.
Now, as far as the defenses go in this spot, what do you think about the Stampeders defense? I think both of these teams were involved in some of the higher scoring games last week, right?
They were, and if my memory, hold on, just a second here.
Because we had 3 points.
Yeah, the defense didn't really do all that hot. Ottawa scored 1 point. Calgary scored 3 points. So they were the 2 lowest scoring defenses last week. Right. And I think that's going to be the same this week. So I wouldn't touch either defense personally.
Right. Well, this game we got is going to be, I think, BC and Toronto. What do you have as far as because I noticed you had some things to say about the Toronto offense, and really not becoming a believer in the offense. But we saw half a stack thrown by Ray last week, man. So what do you think?
Okay. When I went back and looked at it, one of the reasons why he was able to go off is because Hamilton was out, like their top corner, their top safety, like their secondary was really hurt. And I didn't know that until the injury report came out. Once again, I have to stress the importance of looking at the lineup the day before the game. So even right now, I may have some talks. Still look at those lineups the day before the game because I may be off. Keeping it 100. So that's why I think Toronto, right now, the over-under for the game is 51 points, and they have Toronto a 3-point favorite. That, to me, is fool's gold all day. If anybody is betting on Toronto, be prepared to be disappointed, in my opinion. That's just me talking. I do like Ray because while I do think that 500 game was an anomaly, the 40-some-odd passes is not. So if that's any indication, I do believe they're going to be throwing the rock a lot. Therefore, I like Ray and I like S.J. Green as a nice little combo. But I don't like Whitaker. Don't use Whitaker as part of that Toronto combo because he wasn't involved in the running game that much. He wasn't involved in the passing game that much. And they were just throwing bombs after bomb after bomb. I bring up Toronto again because if you were to stack Toronto, you will leave so much money on the table. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So don't be afraid to leave money on the table. That's my theme for this particular show. Don't be afraid to leave money on the table.
Right.
If you are going to stack Toronto, I like Ray, I like Posey, I like S.J. Green, and I like Edwards. My sleeper plays would be Coons. That would be my sleeper play. He's at 3.9, and he was involved in the slot position, but I also saw him being involved in the running game too. So the Coons from Toronto is a nice sleeper candidate. The fact that they're starting to use him in the running game as well as in the passing game. On the other side, on the BC side, oh man, I think BC wins the game. Mainly because BC, in my opinion, just more talented. Arsenal put up a dud last week. Is there anything all right, bro?
Oh yeah, I'm Gucci. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Arsenal put up a dud last week, and I don't think that's going to happen this week. Not at all. I got to give props to the Toronto defense because they put tons and tons of pressure on Hamilton last week. I do believe that's going to repeat. However, I believe Jennings have the athletic ability to escape the pressure and to throw bombs when he's outside, to break containment and throw bombs outside of containment. That's why I think Arsenal is going to come in at. Another player I like is Burnham. He didn't do well last week, but he still, he did decent. I like Burnham and I like Nick Moore. And of course the running back, Jeremiah Johnson. So if you're the stack BC, I like Jennings, Jeremiah Johnson, Nick Moore, Arsenal, and Burnham, and of course Rainey.
Oh yes.
And of course Rainey. And that goes back to what I was saying. If you are playing Rainey, play that BC defense because if Rainey takes one back, and I think he will, you get the double dip.
Right.
You get the double dip. I had to go back and change some of my lineups I made to make sure I had that.
And then I'm over here, and you caught me making notes. See, I got my iPad with me right here too. And while you know what I'm saying? Like I'm building lineups, kind of as we. You spoon feeding me. You know what I'm saying? You spoon feeding me, so I'm gonna eat. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, exactly. And I want everybody to eat. I'm not greedy like some other guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? They want to have the best plays and the best picks and all that stuff. Nah.
Now, I do have a question. Where do you see the ownership on a guy like Ricky Ray that out of the top tier quarterbacks, I believe he's priced beneath them at 8.8? I mean, do you think people are going to go automatically back to him having that 500-yard performance and you're going to see high ownership on him and fading would help?
I believe the entire Toronto team, like game theory, we're talking game theory. People chase points. People are point chasers. It's just natural. So I believe Ray, Posey, like their Toronto passing game will be very highly owned, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So Ray's gonna be high owned. I think last week he was stupid cheap last week.
Mm-hmm.
His price did go up a little bit to the 8.8. He's still one of the lowest priced quarterbacks on the slate. But I think that's fool's gold. I really do. I really do. So you can play him. If you don't believe me, play him. Play him with confidence. But I'm not believing in that Toronto. I'm not impressed. I'm not a believer. Mainly because they look so one-dimensional. And BC has the defense to stop their passing game. They have the type of defense that can stop the passing game. So in my opinion, we're going to see the real Toronto offense this week. If their passing game is stopped, then what? So I like BC to win the game outright. I do agree with Vegas with the 51 over-under. I think it's going to be over that price. I mean, over that score. But I disagree with Vegas with Toronto being the 3-point favorites. I think BC will win the game.
Right. So the next game that we have on deck, we're taking a look here.
That's the Montreal and Edmonton. Right now, the over-under for that game is 49 points, which is the lowest on the slate. And I had to think about it for a second. I was like, wait a minute, if Vegas got this over-under at 49 and it has Edmonton as an 8.5-point favorite, what does that look like? So I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, okay, well, it could be 30-19 is the final score. And the reason why I say that is because Montreal put up 19 points just last week against a sorry defense. So if you can barely score against a sorry defense, we have a better defense in Edmonton, even though they're missing their defensive stalwart in the middle linebacker gone for the season. I'm with Vegas with Edmonton blowing out Montreal. I'm with them on that. I'm definitely with them on that. However, I know Durant, your boy. I'm going to throw a nugget to you and say, if you were to stack Montreal, huge if, but if you were, get you some Cunningham, get you some Lewis, get you some Ejax, and get you some Sutton to go with Durant.
Yo, Sutton, the running back, he was good. He's good.
He wasn't one of the top scoring running backs last week, but he did decent. What you want from your running back typically is about 20 to 25 points is what you want from your running back position. Anything more than that is gravy on top of biscuits. On the hold on just a second here.
And when you talk about Durant, man, I watched that game. I actually watched that game, and I just didn't see the mobility that I thought I was going to see. I know he's an older guy getting up in age. Didn't see the pinpoint accuracy when it came to his passing. Made a lot of decisions I really didn't like. I don't think I'll be rocking on Durant in this spot this week.
Hey, if you also notice, both him and Glenn, which we'll talk about in a second, both of them are throwing a lot of short passes. So if I see a quarterback throwing a lot of short passes, I'm like, okay, can you throw the ball deep? You know what I mean? You got to keep the defenses honest. If you don't throw the deep ball, they will stack on you. The defensive lineman will peel their ears back and be like, shit, he ain't throwing deep. Everything is going to be short passes, so I know I got to get to this quarterback quick.
Right.
Because everything is going to be short. That's why I like Sutton, because I think he's going to catch a few passes out the backfield. That's also why I like Cunningham and Lewis, because they caught a lot of the crossing routes and stuff like that. However, this week, I believe Durant is going to make a point, a conceited effort to throw the ball deep to Ejax. That's why I'm like, if you stack Montreal, get you some Durant Jackson stacks in there. However, I'm not feeling Montreal. I didn't like their offense. If I use players from Montreal, I'm using them as one-offs. I'm not really stacking the Montreal as a whole. I think I made one lineup with a Montreal stack. just to keep myself honest. But I'm not feeling them like that. But on the other side of the ball, Edmonton, woo, buddy.
All right.
I'm all on them. I'm all on them. In my opinion, I think they're going to be the highest scoring team this week. I think they're going to score the most points this week. Riley, White, Hazelton, Zylstra, Dookie Love, Duke Williams, they showed up and showed out. The best part about it, you get a dud from your number one, your top receiver in Bowman. Like I said, that's like Julio Jones putting up, or Odell Beckham putting up, a dud. Right. It happens, but when it happens, you shocked and surprised. I believe, once again, people want to see that and jump off Bowman, and in my opinion, that would be a mistake. Get you some Bowman in your lineup. If you're stacking Edmonton, make sure you have Bowman in your lineup. I really like that Edmonton stack, bro. I really do. I like Riley, White, Dookie Love, Duke Williams, Bowman, and Zylstra. The kick returner last week was Perkins. He was also the backup running back. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure you watch the lineups before look out for the lineups before they're released to find out, make sure that's still the case. You can use Perkins as a kick returner. He wasn't that very much involved in other aspects of the game, so I don't want to, endorse him. But that's where I'm at with Edmonton. I really like Edmonton to win the game outright, and I'm with Vegas with the spread, and I'm even with Vegas on the over/under because Montreal didn't look good to me.
Now, is that Tyquan Underwood? Is that Tyquan Underwood from the league, from the NFL?
Yeah, he did used to play for the league. Last year he played for Hamilton Ticats. This year he's in Montreal.
Okay.
He's involved in the offense, but not heavily involved.
Right. But I know one guy I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using Duke Williams. I like him.
Yeah, and I like Dookie Love too, bro. You can call him the Duke of Edmonton, but when I watched the game and he scored that touchdown, you know what the players was yelling in the camera? Dookie Love. So that's what I'm gonna call him. if his homies in the locker room was calling him Dookie Love, that's his nickname to me, Dookie Love. But yeah, give me some Dookie Love, bro. Straight up.
I talked a little bit more about Mike Riley in this spot, man. 10.2 is the price point. He's priced up right up there with some of the other higher dollar quarterbacks here. I know you like Edmonton as a stack. I know you think they can be one of the highest scoring offenses of the week. Why so high on Mike Riley particular?
Mainly because he is similar to Bo Levi. He's going to get you your 300-yard, 2 touchdowns. He's going to get you that. It's just a matter of who is going to get those touchdowns. He likes to spread the ball around. Last week he had he passed the ball to 7 different wide receivers, 7 different catchers, caught a pass. Right. So he makes sure even when they started double teaming Bowman, he recognized it. He plays what the defense gives him. If you're going to double team Bowman, fine. I'll throw a deep bomb to Dookie. If you ain't going to double team Dookie, fine. I'll throw underneath the Zylstra. You double team Bowman and Duke, fine. Zylstra going deep. He plays what the defense gives him. He's a very smart quarterback. I can see him dropping bombs all day, especially if Bowman get open, and which he will. Absolutely. Give me Riley. Give me some Riley. And they dropped his price. They dropped his price by $600, so it makes it easier to stack him. Makes it a whole lot easier to stack him. He put up 23.7 DK points last week. I think he can go over that this week.
Right. And we do have some viewers in, man, watching. Cats are really getting into this, man. They're saying they're gonna give it a shot. They're gonna hop into CFL. They're gonna, and this is because of you, bro. Like, you're really bringing us the real deal, uncut truth about CFL from your standpoint, and we really enjoy it, man. Just thank you again from me, from the sweatshop, to everybody on YouTube, man. Thank you for what you're doing, man.
No doubt. Hey, like I said, bro, I want everybody to eat. So when homie sent that text and say, hey, man, I didn't have time to make a lineup, do no research. All I did is listen to your show and made a lineup based on the show, and I won $150. I want that for everybody. I want us to take shit down, bro. I want everybody to eat.
Now, the last game on the slate we got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Kind of a tough going for Saskatchewan in their first game. It was actually the first game of the CFL season. And Winnipeg, the Blue Bombers, not sure this is a place where we can use Saskatchewan. I think this is a more of a place where we can attack them with the Blue Bombers. Talk about that. Let us know what you think about this one.
Well, now, first off, let me give you a little narrative. Saskatchewan is opening up a new stadium. So this their first home game in this new stadium, so be on the lookout. That is a big narrative. The crowd going to be amped. However, they got a sorry-ass quarterback in Glenn. Like, I sat there and watched that game, and I'm like, Glenn, throw the ball deep to Carter. Throw the ball deep to Carter. It was like he was afraid to throw the ball deep, and it makes sense. The dude had 11 interceptions last year. He was one of the worst quarterbacks last year. I can't play Saskatchewan stack in confidence. I can play one-offs, but I can't play it in confidence because the quarterback play sucks. He can't be good. Like, he's a placeholder. But the worst part is they don't really have a good backup. So it's like he's holding the spot for nobody. I feel sorry for Saskatchewan, bro. I really do. Because their fan bases really love their team, but their team sucks. I'm just keeping it 100.
Now on the other side, you got Matt Nichols on the other side. Has he had a start yet?
I'm going to go in detail with Winnipeg because this is Winnipeg's first game of the season. They was on a bye week last week, so there's not much information on them. I also believe that both of these teams, because they're the last game on the slate, because not a lot of people know about Winnipeg, and because Saskatchewan sucks, both of these teams will be very, very, very low on. Very low on. So if you want to pivot from Toronto, I believe Toronto is going to be high on because people are going to be point chasing. They saw that big 500-yard game, so they're going to be chasing that. If you want to pivot from that, I suggest you could pivot to Winnipeg. I like Nichols. Last year, Winnipeg had a lot of rotation at the quarterback. One of those quarterbacks was Glenn. They got rid of Glenn. They had Drew Wiley in there. They got rid of him, and they finally got Matt Nichols. Once Matt Nichols got in there, they had some good rhythm going. So I believe in Nichols. But the key to this offense is the running back, which is Harris. Harris is a beast. It's nice. You're getting a lot of feedback. You hearing that?
Yeah, train going by, man. I live on the wrong side of the tracks.
It's all good. I feel you. I had to cut my AC off so I can make sure I ain't have a lot of wind going over here too. But anyway, I like Winnipeg. If I was to stack Winnipeg, this is where you're going to get some good value. Now, Toronto also has some good value because their prices went up only a little bit, but I think that's fool's gold. Winnipeg, one of my favorite plays off of Winnipeg, other than Harris, is Dressler. Dressler last year was a 1,000-yard receiver, and he caught like 80-some-odd passes off 100-some-odd targets. So even though they had a huge rotation at quarterback, he was still being targeted by each one of those quarterbacks. So I think Dressler will improve on that. The thing is, he only had 2 passing touchdowns. He only caught 2 passing touchdowns. I think you're going to be better. The other player I like is Adams. Adams was a rookie last year. He showed up and showed out, and I think he's going to do that again this week. Darvin Adams.
Right.
The ultimate value play. This is we're going to call this case one of K Sizzle hot takes. I want to make sure he's on here before I say it.
I'm about to go to the Sizzler, baby.
Hold on, just a second. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I already got him in the lineup. No wonder I can't find him. LaDainian Washington. He's been working with the first team offense. Right now, his price is at $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
He's a rookie. He's been starting with there, and he might be returning kicks. So be on the look. Be on the lookout for their lineup when it comes out. The lineup come out the day before, so Friday, sometime Friday, you should get a lineup for Winnipeg. If LaDainian Washington is returning kicks, put him in your lineup.
He's been running. Dude's a 6'4" deep threat.
He's 26. He's 6'4". Like, dude is. I like him. He's a rook, but I've been hearing a lot of good things out of that practice. You know what I mean? He's been burning folks left and right, bro. So be on the lookout for LaDainian Washington, especially if they got him returning kicks as well. He might break the slate on you. Other players I like from Winnipeg, I mentioned Nichols, the quarterback. I mentioned Harris, the running back. I mentioned Adams, Dressler, and Washington. As a fourth, Denmark. But once again, I want to see the lineups come out before I endorse Denmark specifically. But I'm heavy on the Winnipeg defense. Last year, Winnipeg led the league in interceptions. You combine that with the fact that Glenn led the league in interceptions. So you got the worst quarterback throwing the most interceptions combined with the defense that got the most interception. This sounds like the perfect recipe to me. Right now, the over-under is at 50, and they have Winnipeg as a 1-point favorite. I think Vegas is wrong on the Winnipeg being 1-point favorites. I think they're going to blow out Saskatchewan. I don't think Saskatchewan going to put up, hell, I don't even think they can put up 20 points, to be honest with you.
Now, I just had a question from YouTube, man, from YouTube chat. It says, is there a late swap in CFL?
Yes, there is late swap. So when you're making your lineups, you want to put the guys that's playing late in your flex positions. So, for an example, if you make a stack with Calgary, which is the first game on the slate, and you throw in a Denmark or a Dressler or, one-off from that Winnipeg Saskatchewan game, make sure whenever your one-off is in the flex position. So, yeah, they do allow late swap. Matter of fact, I'm glad they brought it up because last week I was at a crossroads last week. I had Brandon Banks in my lineup, and I saw that he was not starting at wide receiver. So when I saw but he was still returning kicks. I had him at 30% ownership out of my lineups. So when I saw he wasn't starting at wide receiver, I knew I had to reduce how much ownership. So I late swap. Took him out, reduced him down, put Tim's in, and put Zylstra in. So, yeah, strategically wise, and that turned out to be a great play. That's how come I ended up, I think I ended up coming in second place in that one particular lineup because of late swap.
Wonderful. Good.
And also, I read that a guy who won first place in the big tournament, he put Posey in from Toronto because of late swap. So, late swap is your friend, and don't be afraid to leave money on the table. From the Saskatchewan side, I mentioned this earlier, but I want to mention it again. Marshall started last week because of an injury, and to LaFrance. So either LaFrance or Morris might start, but we won't know until the lineups come out. So. Right. If you already have Marshall in your lineups, his price went up. He was at $3K last week. He went to 5.4, but he's not the official starter. He was just playing a role because somebody was hurt. So be on the lookout for that. Find out who's going to be starting at running back for Saskatchewan. Other players I like from Saskatchewan is Dembski and Bakari Grant. Dembski, let me back up. Collins is the kick returner for Saskatchewan, and he's hurt. In practice, Dembski and Carter has been practicing returning kicks in practice. So one of them guys might be listed as the kick returner, punt returner. Hell, it might be both of them, one for punts, one for kickoffs. So keep that in mind when the lineups come out. Find out who's returning kicks. it's going to be either Dembski or Carter, or it could be both. Between those two, I like Dembski. The main reason why is because Glenn barely throws the ball deep. Dembski and Bakari Grant was catching a lot of the short passes and the underneath passes and the crossing routes. So, and I think that's going to be a repeat. He was feeding the ball to Roosevelt on those same type of routes, but he barely threw the ball deep. So if you're going to have some one-offs from Saskatchewan, I like Roosevelt, I like Bakari Grant, and I like Dembski. And if Carter is returning kicks, I like him too. But like I said, that's the only way I can throw in Carter with some type of confidence is if he's involved in the Kimba game.
Right.
But to me, the value play of the entire slate is going to be LaDainian Washington. If he starts, return kicks at 3K, he can break the slate, bro. He can definitely break the slate. Now, I do want to talk about a little bit about game theory because people talk to me about leaving money on the table. Do not be afraid to leave money on the table. This week alone, I have made a lineup with over $8,000 still left on the table. So,
I want to ask you now: is this because of the pricing not being as tight in the beginning of the season, or is this something that's just the way CFL is, where you can leave money on the table?
It's a combination of both. Now, you can leave money on the table, but not that much. Like, as the season progresses, the pricing will get tighter. But as we know already, there's a lot of high turnover because of injuries. So you're going to still be able to find your value plays. So you'll still be able to find, like the guy Washington that I talked about, or let me see, another good bet, or Dembski. Dembski is at 4.3. So you'll still be able to find your value plays as the season progresses and pricing gets tighter. But once again, don't be afraid to leave money on the table. The way CFL works is that because of the high turnover at positions and injuries, and some guys get signed to the league, and some, it's a high turnover, and they play 20 games in the season. So don't be afraid to leave money on the table. I done said that about 50 times in this. And I will keep stressing it because I got more money. I can throw this guy in. I can throw this guy in. If you like your lineups, and trust your process. I even said that to you on the line drive today. When you was talking about the Padres, and you really didn't like the Padres. And I was like, bro, if your research took you to the Padres, trust your process. Right. Trust your process and stay with the Padres. I don't know if the Padres won you money or not, but trust your process. So, and I have to say that to people that's watching, people that's listening, trust your process, trust your research. Don't be afraid to leave money on the table if you really like your lineups.
Now we do have some tournaments on DraftKings starting. You're going to be a part of the 20 entry max. It's the 15K Audible. We've got quite a few tournaments here. Some of them fairly lower buy-ins. You've got some single entry stuff in there. What's the way that you attack CFL? Is it through cash games? Are you a single entry guy? You're just a tournament player?
Well, by nature, I'm a tournament player. By nature, because I like to run multiple lineups. So by nature, I'm a tournament player. But messing around with the sweatshop, I've got into your single entries. So you stressed it, I'm going to stress it. Get into your single entries. Definitely get into your single entries, whatever lineup that you're going in. Because the other thing with CFL, not a lot of people play it. So last week, it was a lot of overlay. And that's week 1.
Right.
It was a lot of overlay. And you're going to see that all season, especially when NFL season gets kick off. Ooh, it's going to be tons of overlay, bro. Tons of overlay. So I attack the quarter leagues. I always attack the quarter leagues because that's my bread and butter. And then I'm doing single entries.
Good. Well, yo, man, this is always enlightening, man. I always enjoy it. I got a chance to watch 3 of the 4 CFL games, and I was very entertained. A couple of guys I remember when they were in college, So I was really, I'm into it, and I'm gonna be riding along with CFL, man. As long as we got you, I feel like we got a way to keep in touch and know exactly what's going on. So I'm into it, man. And I can't thank you enough for coming on, man, and kicking it with us, chopping up with us. Yo, those of you that do not follow the homie KSizzle7 on Twitter, that's at KSizzle7 on Twitter, you're missing out, man. Hop into the CFL, follow him on Twitter, and of course check us out in the sweatshop. Anything you want to let us know, take us to the Sizzler right now before you go.
Oh man, all right. It's so much, bro. I done let my value plays go out. You know what I mean, with LaDainian Washington. That's my super value plays. That's cases or how I take it to slate. Somebody asked me about who I would lock. I said Bo Levi, but I wouldn't be mad if you locked in Mike Riley as well. To me, those are your top two quarterbacks. I said even last week, don't play up for running back. I was wrong because all the top price running backs were also the top scoring running backs. Until the pricing gets fixed, it may still be that way. I'm not exactly sure, but I personally don't like to pay up for running backs. I keep that same philosophy in the NFL as well. Game theory. All right. Stack games. So if the over-under is high, stack the game. I like to do that personally. Also, look at the second and third receivers. So while your main receivers, somebody did this real big deep analysis on boundary receivers. Like I mentioned this last week, you got your boundary receivers and you got your slot backs. So they mentioned that your boundary receivers really don't get a lot of play depending on the offense. They don't get really heavily involved. So be on the lookout for who are the wide receivers split out the widest. They also have what they call a short side and the wide side. The CFL is different, subtle differences, but it's so much fun. Watch the game. If you're new to CFL, watch the games. You will love it. You will love it. It's high scoring. It's passing. It's everything that the NFL wants to be. But you got your purists who still like to, run the football and you still got your purists. So
2 yards in a cloud of smoke.
Right. So that's how come the NFL don't fully go to where the CFL is at, but they want to. You see it. That's why they start babying the quarterbacks and babying the wide receivers and stuff like that in the NFL because they want high-scoring game because that excites people and stuff like that. So the CFL is what the NFL wants to be. I like watching the CFL. I love playing CFL DFS. I'm glad DraftKings is doing it. I wish they get more player prize pools, but if more people get involved, they'll see people like it. They'll do it. They'll do it. They will definitely do it. Top quarterbacks, I said Bo Levi. I said Mike Riley. Don't be afraid to go back to Bowman and Arsenal. Even though they put up duds last week, they are your Julio Jones Beckham of CFL. So don't be afraid to play them again this week. You'll see I mentioned this before, people point chase. So don't be point chasing Ricky Ray and the Toronto passing game because I believe they're going to be the chalk. That's the only reason why I say that don't play them is because I believe they're going to be the chalk. But they are in a good matchup, and I do think they're going to play well. But I'm off of them because they're chalky. They're too chalky for my taste, and it's too much value. Play dual threats and triple threats. So look for players that are active in multiple aspects of the game. So if they're returning kicks and catching and starting at wide receiver, you want that. Or if they, like Rainey and stuff like that, you want players like that. That's the most advice that I can give right now without giving away all my secrets. But like I said, I want everybody to eat.
So again, big shout out to the homie KSizzle7, man. Went out and gave his hot take to the NFL. Get like the CFL was a hot take from KSizzle, man. Go follow the homie on Twitter, man, at KSizzle7. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at DFS Jerusalem. hit us up on the website for more exclusive content. K-Sizzle does an article inside of the Sweatshop VIP, man, and it's really good. The thread turns into a lot of conversation, a lot of chop up. Yo, get in on that. The way you do that is you go to the website at www.dfssweatshop.com. This has been K-Sizzle7 and your DFS Jerusalem signing off. If you're on DraftKings, keep it 200. If you're on FanDuel, keep it 250. And if you're in the sweatshop, that means you're always keeping it 300. Peace.